Welcome. This is the third Friday meeting of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom San Jose branch regular meetings. And tonight we have a speaker who's coming from a wonderful program in San Jose to talk about the youth housing crisis in this area and maybe beyond. But you know how our meetings go. We start with the Raging Grannies, and we start by singing some appropriate songs. Are we ready to do that, all the Raging Grannies who are here? Oh, here comes another Raging Granny. We waited just long enough to get one more Raging Granny to be with us. And it's really challenging to sing together on Zoom. In fact, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So the only way to put singing into a program is to have everybody mute but one person. So the one person who's leading sings at the top of their voice and gets it out there. And everybody else who's on mute also sings to the top of their voices, but it's not heard. So I'm going to share my screen. This is we have two songs to begin with, and then we have the program. And then at the end of the program, we have some Q&A or Chuck, you can build that in how you would like. And then we end our program with some announcements and two Raging Granny songs at the end.
There are too many folks sleeping out in the street, clutching their bundles through the cold or the heat. No place to call home and no blankets or bed. They're lucky if some of them even get fed. When wages are too low to pay the high rent and folks are left homeless, not even a tent, it's time for a change, and on that we agree. More affordable housing is what we all need. In this prosperous country now, wouldn't you think we could house all the homeless as quick as a wink? If we weren't spending billions on weapons of war, we'd have affordable housing for all of the poor. In Silicon Valley, it's time to get down and to feed and to house all the poor in our town. We must fight against poverty, not against the poor, so that no one goes hungry or homeless no more. And that's by the wonderful Vicky Ryder from the Triangle branch in North Carolina.
All right, there you go. That's our opening. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce our speaker, Chuck Cantrell, who is the Director of Development. Well, that may not be his exact title, but he does development for the San Jose Conservation Corps and Charter School. Now, if we were in person, you would get one of these, which is a wonderful program about what they do. But we're not in person, so I'm just going to tell you that this program covers many of the needs of developing young people developing young adults in Santa Clara County. They are creating transformative change, and they do that with several different programs. The charter school, they have trades training program. They build micro houses. I don't know if it's true to call them a micro house, but to me, that would be kind of what it is, a tiny home. They do zero waste. When you visit their facility, they have this sign says zero waste. And so that's part of what is happening, where they are training people in this community about having a sustainable community through zero waste. And they are nurturing the aspirations of young people. How do I know all of this? I just read it out of their thing. You could follow along if we were in person. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Chuck Cantrell. Chuck, thank you for joining us. unmute and the screen is yours.
Okay. Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. Once again, it's interesting to find people who I find harmony with like this. Those two songs are just a prescription for the way we should all live as a community. It really is. I mean, down to providing what we call dignity housing, where people can come in from the cold and be themselves and begin to replace their survival skills with living skills again. I mean, that's, anyway, lovely. Thank you so much. I do really appreciate that. Just to kind of briefly introduce myself, I'm Chuck Cantrell. I am the director, now my title recently changed, by the way. I'm director of housing and development. So I still do development, fund development. And now I'm responsible for our housing programs at the San Jose Conservation Corps. It's the best kept secret in San Jose, actually. But we are essentially a job development program. So we work with what we call opportunity youth. We work with young people who are functioning members of our society, absent of opportunities. And that's what we do. We provide them opportunities. And when provided, they take us up on it and they find success for themselves. And that's the key to our success here. So the opportunities we provide range very widely. We have a charter school. Our charter school really picks up those young people who, for whatever reason, and believe me, I've heard a lot of reasons that things get off track in their lives. And we work with them to complete high school and get a diploma. It's an actual diploma. We are actually an accredited school in San Jose. And we basically try to be their last year of school. Doesn't always work out that way. We have a number of young folks who, life continues to happen in very negative ways for them, and they leave our program, but the door is always open and they come back. And when they come back, we welcome them back and we take up where we left off. Our job is to present opportunity in a loving, supportive, trustworthy way. And we're often the first time, I hear this so often, we're the first adults in their lives that they could actually trust. And that's, I have, my beautiful children here. It would break my soul if they didn't believe that I was there for them and they could trust me. And it breaks my soul every time I hear them, but I'm always encouraged by those stories and what happens at the end of that story. It starts with all of these things happen to me, and it is the range of harmful human experience. And then they say, but then I came to the core. And we are a part of that transformation story for them. They are the most important ingredient in that story, but we are a part of that success for them. I am also, I should tell you a little bit about my genesis and where I started and why I'm here. I grew up poor in the projects of St. Louis, Missouri. Poor in income, but never poor in spirit and drive from my mom, whom I forever love, and who is always, she's passed, but she's still always with me, always with me. And the things that I learned about where I came from kind of drove me to actually to get a degree in economics, because I wanted to understand what makes this happen. How do people land in poverty? Why do these structures exist? And how do we help people? I got my degree, I'm a social economist. I am not a microeconomist, I'm a macroeconomist. I'm all about systems and how they work. Um, that's my focus. For some time in my career, I left the mortgage-backed securities industry and started a career in consulting. And I spent a lot of my time helping very large corporations learn how to get people to buy their products, essentially. That's it. That's it. It's a lot of work in a lot of different areas. But that's where I spent my career until one day I turned over in the morning and looked at my wife and said, baby, I can't do this anymore. And that's when I started the service end of my career. So I've been focused on service to my community in just about every way that I can. My wife says in way too many ways, but in just about every way that I can. I am a planning commissioner for the city of San Jose. I work for the San Jose Conservation Corps as a loving, dedicated employee. They're to fundraise and there to house our young people and anything else I can do along the way. I am the president of my neighborhood association, which I love, where I do my work to make my community better. I am president of Keep Coyote Creek Beautiful, where I serve our communities and trying to create natural environments that we can all enjoy and breathe, and remove some of the mess created by our society's inability to house the people who deserve comfortable, dignified housing. I am also on the board of Save Our Trails because I am always in need of a walk, and our trails are there for all of us to use, enjoy, and learn to breathe, sometimes quietly. So those are the many things that I do in my life. And by the way, as I go through this, ask any question that you like. I will answer the ones I can't. And if I can't, I will get answers to those questions, if at all possible. And if not, I'll do what my mom always said, be truthful and honest, and hope that you all understand. The San Jose Conservation Corps does a lot of things, as I said. We run a zero waste program where we try to create zero waste. What that means is we recycle electronics. We recycle tires and mattresses and the things that people believe go away. There's no away. I hate to break any fantasies anybody has. There's no place called away. All of those things land in landfills or in streets and in places where they should not. So we do everything we can to recycle those items. We also we have a program to help clarify what to do with used oil, beverage containers. We do all of the recycling that we can to keep stuff from winding up thrown away. We also run a program that is focused on trying to mitigate the damage done to, for example, areas where there have been forest fires. We have spikes where our crews go out and they work in nature for us to try to fix the damage that was done. They also try to remove invasive species from some of our stream areas and other forest areas that shouldn't be there, that are choking out the natural health of our forest. You'll also see our Corps members on some of our trails in San Jose on bicycles, riding to help people using those trails feel safe, to make sure there are no branches or things that are in the way, as well as, you know, letting our crews know, hey, there's some stuff out here we need to have cleaned up to keep our trails safe and clean. And then we also do trash mitigation programs where we have crews that go out and pick up stuff that shouldn't be laying around, recycle as much of that stuff as we can, but make sure that it goes to the landfill at a minimum and doesn't just live on our streets. And one other kind of important, really important program that is a part of our mission is we recycle food waste, food that would be called waste from Target, Sprouts, and a number of other local grocery stores. Perfectly good food that is edible and often quite delicious. I get some of my snacks from there from time to time. And we provide that food to our community and to our core members who are part of our housing promise. And that's what we're going to talk in depth about today, our housing promise and why we make that promise. I don't know if you all know it, but San Jose has a really significant problem with unhoused youth. San Jose, according to what's called the point in time count from HUD, has the distinction of being #1 in unhoused youth in the country by far. Even New York City, in comparison, by far. We're now, I think, the 12th largest city, but we're the #1 city for unhoused. We also have a significant problem within our school system of having almost 4,500 students experiencing homelessness during they do a point in time count essentially for the school system as well. A significant problem. I'm also a member of Rotary, by the way, and we actually have a program at Washington School, and that program actually does some things around the holidays to try to support our unhoused families at the school, which is it's a joyous moment, but it's heartbreaking to think about young kids in school who return not to a home and often not to a shelter, but to a riverbank, to a makeshift home by a creek. It's heartbreaking. And the two songs that you guys started off with today are exactly what happens in our communities. And it is preventable. Quite frankly, if we just took the cost of one bomber, we could house everyone in San Jose. One bomber. We're just not using our math skills the right way. When I do my work, part of my work is trying to understand what it means to be unhoused. I had to actually reflect back to a time that I had actually put aside in my own mind when I had been unhoused and what that meant to me and how difficult it was and what I did during that time. I talked with a young woman recently who talked about what a day in her life had been, where she wore the soles of her shoes off walking. And she did so because a moving target was harder to catch. She walked to survive because being unhoused is no place for a young woman in our society. No place. The victimization is just tragic. So she walked every day for as long as she could so that she could survive. I also did some research in this other quote, life on the street is a lot more dangerous for kids now. The drugs are much stronger and there's no coming back from them. The reality of the work that I do is for this reason. Young people do not fit within the structure of Santa Clara County's unhoused systems. There's a system called the VSPDAT, which is a intake system that, in order to get housing from the county for unhoused people, everyone has to go through this system. So it's an intake form that they have to fill out. And this intake form was actually created in an era where our unhoused population was different, where our unhoused population were what we call chronically unhoused. And this was a way to categorize their need. Well, young people, by definition, are not chronically unhoused. They're generally very new to homelessness. So their score within the system is not high enough for them to be housed generally for a year, which leads to that issue. If they are on the street for a year, their likelihood of getting into a drug habit within that time frame is significantly high. And as this person said, those drugs are powerfully strong, and there's no way to come back from it. So we often hear that the problem with our unhoused community is that they're on drugs or alcohol and other things. It's a chicken and egg situation. I will be completely honest with you. If I were unhoused today, I would be on drugs. I could not survive that reality. I just couldn't do it. So I understand that homelessness drives the need to escape from it somehow. I feel like I'm in a race against time to get our young people housed before it's too late. And it's an issue that, I know that we can do, and I put all that I can into trying to do that. So ask yourself, what happens when we do house them? I'm going to play this video for you. I hope that you can see it and hear it. Here, I'll play it.
I was going to school at night and working in the day, which made it really challenging to maintain that type of life. A couple months back, our home burnt down, and I had gone through a time where I didn't have housing. So when I found the Corps, they had said they offered support with housing, and that's when I was able to apply and receive help. Well, I go to school and work part-time. I work 3 days a week and 2 days at school, and it's just a very easy schedule to follow. Being in the tiny home has definitely helped me pursue my education. I think without the tiny home, I wouldn't have been able to continue getting my education. It's just really been an experience where I'm extremely grateful that I've been able to take advantage of these opportunities and resources.
So that was one of our Corps members, Belinda. And that was a short version of her story. Her story starts much differently, but I prefer that they tell their stories and I don't. And what she speaks to is how she came to the Corps and then what happened while she was engaged with the Corps. That home she was in was one of our tiny homes. It's not glamping, it's much better. It's a beautiful environment designed to do skills development for young people so that they are able to progress to a home of their own. It has a full functioning bathroom. It has a washer and dryer, a mini washer and dryer within the unit itself. It has a kitchenette with an induction cooktop that's on a timer, by the way, because we learn sometimes young folks forget they have things on the stove. So we try to build to make sure that we're protecting them. It has a refrigerator with a freezer, storage area, it's air conditioned, a mini camera to the doorbell so that they can always feel comfortable knowing who's outside their door before they answer. So they're safe, they're secure. It's built to help them build the life skills that they need so that they are capable when they leave our tiny home to move into their own environment and continue their lives forward. It's meant to transition young people. So they build the life skills that are required to do that. One of the parts of the program that's really important to know is that we do charge rent. That part of the rent that we charge is actually commensurate with what they earn. It's never more than 25% of what they earn, often less. But that is a part of learning the responsibility of being accountable to yourself by making sure that you are helping to provide for yourself and your environment. That's a life skill. Young people need to learn that life skill. Often they have no idea how this system works. We actually collect a deposit from them as well. Their deposit is actually paid monthly. And what they don't realize that they're doing is they're saving. That's why we collect the deposit. They are learning to save every month, to pay themselves first every month. And when they leave our tiny home, they take that with them. So that, and actually, even Belen tells the story, she had no idea, and she realized at some point that she had managed to save some actual money that could help her move forward. We also recognize that housing deposits here are significantly large. So through one of our grantors, we have a program that helps to pay the actual deposit for their first month's rent when they do move out. We want this to be successful. If the barriers to their success are significantly high, we try to find ways to lower that barrier for them so that they can be successful. So instead of having to use all the money she saved, she was able to use that money to buy some of the things she needed to start her new home. So that's how this all works. So I did talk a little bit earlier about the causes of youth homelessness, and the list is as long as life is. It is everything from parents just saying, hey, you're 18, you gotta go. Just that simple. You gotta go. To serial abuse, to fires and other things that happen, tragedies, death of parents and family members that were supporting them. It's a long, long list of issues. Not to mention our not just our core members, but the young people who leave the foster care system. Uniquely tragic. One of my sons, my late life adoption, was 18 when he came to live with us because the world had placed him as an adult. And I know from raising my own children, no 18-year-old is ready for life on their own. And he came to live with us. We had an extra room. And he is now my son, who has an amazing life now. He actually just got a promotion. He's a director of a food service program at Charles Schwab. He's an amazing young man in a loving, committed relationship with an amazing young woman. And just imagine if we let them go. We can help. I can't help them all, but I can bring in the ones that I can. I did talk also about the technical problems of the VI-SPDAT and how it works, and that it's not purposeful, or it's not by design that the system fails. It's by failure to redesign when we know there are problems, and those are the things we're challenged with, that we try to work through every day. And then there's the problem that for those young people, there are only about, and this is an overestimated, 300 beds available for unhoused transition age youth in our county. When the supply is actually well above, I think it's closer to 3,800 unhoused youth by track from the point in time count, but that count is not accurate in any way at all. They're moving targets. They're really hard to find. So that's only by what we were able to find during the count day. There is very little housing in the pipeline designed for these young folks. Very little. I know of 2, I think, which, just won't meet the need for sure. Here are some examples of what others have done to try to meet the need of these young people. One of the programs that I mentioned that's in development, it's in the pipeline, is called the Hub. The Hub was actually started by, it was a brainchild of Raising the Bar. This young man who is brilliant and dedicated, who is actually from the foster care system himself, so he knows it very well, who graduated from San Jose State and now runs Raising the Bar, which offers a number of programs that represents about 50 or so of those beds that I talked about that are available in the community. But now the county, Santa Clara County, is now the developer of this 81 affordable apartment complex. Half of that, which will be for foster youth, that is currently under development. They broke ground a few months ago. It takes a long time to build these developments, a very long time. Average somewhere between 7 and 5 years, depending. I saw one in San Francisco just recently that actually was done in 3 years, but that was for general unhoused population. And that was, everybody said, that's amazing. 3 years, can you believe it? That's amazing, 3 years. I also visited WILPF, which is a tiny home dormitory in Oakland. These folks, like us, run a youth workforce development program. And like us, they were faced with this very harsh realization. How do you have a young person show up and be available to learn if they're unhoused? So they did what we did. Because there was nothing available, they created these tiny homes themselves first as an emergency measure to bring these young people inside so that they could be available to learn. And then again, because no one else is doing it, they made an investment and purchased this home across the street from their office location and their training location to house unhoused youth. I think it's 30 beds within this dormitory style housing. It is much nicer than most, unfortunately. It's much nicer. A lot of this transitional housing it's just 1 or 2 levels above being unhoused. And this one offers dignity and support in one location. And those are the types of programs that we embrace. As the Corps understands this problem, and we've never shied away from solutioning problems, we've dedicated ourselves to build the housing that our community needs, and not just for our Corps members, that our community needs for transition age youth. No one else is doing this. So we take it upon ourselves to do this in a way that honors the living beings that they are, restores their dignity, and provides them for opportunity and a path forward for their lives. With that, I'm just going to go to, if you have any questions, like I said, please let me know. Just to give you kind of a quicker look of what our housing, our current housing program looks like. This is what our tiny home looks like. Every tiny home is outfitted with what it takes to live with dignity. There's a place to sleep, a place to sit, a place to study, to store your things. It's air conditioned and heated. Refrigeration, small closet. You have to learn to have fewer things for sure. But this is an environment where you can, it's a little washer and dryer unit I talked about there. And with this, we provide everything that they need, including bedding, plates and forks and knives and all the things that they need to start a life on their own. That's what our tiny homes look like. What you don't see there, because they look very livable, is that we understand that we need to run this program responsibly so that we can, when someone leaves, turn it over very quickly, repair any damage that's done. So the walls are actually made of plywood and they're painted to feel like home. But it's really quick and easy to spray and paint and turn over to the next tenant. It's very easy. So we designed these to be very structurally sound. They're actually on wheels, they're mobile. So they can even have a life after this program, by the way. We worked with the city to restructure housing laws that it is legal and easy to put these in backyards in the city of San Jose. So we have a life for these after the life use by our core members as well. But that's how we're doing them. Currently, we were trying again to have these placed in backyards of our community. Unfortunately, when we started the program, we started it just as COVID started. Not a good time to put someone in someone's backyard. It wasn't. So now we're looking at opportunities to return to that model, but also we are looking to use SB4, the new law for the state that's often termed Yes in God's Backyard, to place these homes with religious institutions to help house young folks in our community. And we believe, as we experience our core members, we know that these are young folks given opportunity who are just amazing. We think that pairing them with organizations that have that part of dignity and love and respect, where they can share in that together, should be harmonious. So that's where that is. So I do have some other stuff I want to show you, but I don't want to show you to the end. It's the surprise. So please, any questions that you have?
So we have a question in the chat, and Amy has her hand raised, and now Paula has her hand raised. Do you want to be coordinating this, Paula?
Sure. I didn't see what was in the chat. So if you want to read the question in the chat, that would be helpful.
So Deborah asks, where do you get the funding for these tiny home programs? Is there any possibility of consistent state support?
So, okay, so here's a problem. So I make it my job to raise funding for this program. That is part of my job. Right now we have some very generous gifts from two foundations, one of which prefers that we not say who they are. And so we respect that, but they are extremely generous. I'll say that much. We also have funding from the Tipping Point Foundation, which received this group of funding that they have right now from Visa, the credit card vendor or company, to solve the issues of unhoused homelessness, youth homelessness within several counties in the area, and they fund us. We also get funding from Bank of America, specifically for our housing program, and from just recently from Wells Fargo Bank for our housing program. And they're both very generous, and we have some other opportunities we're always working on to do more, specifically around what we're doing next. But we also get some very generous individual contributions from people. And if you see some of our tiny homes, you'll see a plaque that's dedicated to those individual givers who basically, pay the at least the cost of materials. So that our core members, by the way, these tiny homes are built by our core members. It's a part of our training program. So they're getting the skills to build. They're doing an amazing job doing that. And as we develop out this program, we're actually working to get them into pre-apprenticeships with the trades where they can earn a very good wage for their skills. So there's some complexity in that system, and I'm not going to lie to you. There are some issues with how those people that are on the bench with trades get to work. We're working through those issues. We're not walking into it blindly. We want to make sure that they're treated fairly as well, specifically young women. This industry is for everyone, and we want to make sure that they have an equal opportunity.
Does that answer your question, Debbie? Okay, now Amy and Karen, you have your hand up. If you'll unmute and voice your question online, that'd be great. Okay.
Do you help them with do they have ill people, and do you help them with mental illness?
Yes, we do. We have a variety of concerns with our core members in general, to be honest. We have a program, which the nameless benefactor helps us support our support services. So we try to wrap them in the support that they need, counseling, issues, food, diapers sometimes for our core members with children, formula, you name it. One of the biggest things is socks and underwear and just the things that they need. We do, like I said, if there's a need, we try to fill it. We're actually looking currently for a licensed clinical social worker to lead that program. They are very hard to find in this area, very hard to find. They've learned that with their MSW, they can do private practice and even not take insurance and make a lot more money than we could ever pay. But we're working on that. We do work with them in that area, and you're right. Some of them have issues, and we work with them to support them.
Do you hook them up with services outside?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we don't have a licensed clinical social worker, we have to find those services for them, and we have a path. We know where to send them to get the support that they need, and they do get the support that they need. It is available. It's hard to access if you don't understand the system, but yeah, we become experts of the system.
Does that answer your question, Amy?
Yes. Thank you.
And by the way, Amy, just so you know, we understand that people and pets are important to their emotional support and development. So we have people, some of our young core members, with cats and other pets that are a part of their existence in our tiny homes.
Okay, so I saw Julia's hand, so if you'll unmute Julia, and then I have a question also. So Julia?
Why not make big villages just like that for permanent housing?
I love
Or
what
at
you
least
said.
so they could stay as long as they need to until they feel like they want to move up. And
So one thing you should know is we have a problem. We've never evicted anyone. So they stay longer than prescribed. It's because we want to ensure their success going forward. So we don't push them out the door.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
But there's something I want to show you later. So anyway.
So Chuck, and my question is, the yes in God's backyard, I think I heard you say at a previous presentation that it also applies to parking lots of the junior colleges. And I'm wondering if what you have in the pipeline that goes in that direction and how that would work, particularly, how do you hook up to the sewer in a parking lot and how do you hook up to power in a parking lot?
So the really gorgeous thing about parking lots is, and by the way, how do you hook up to water also? But
Oh yeah.
Most parking lots are lit, so there's power. Also, if the parking lot is located correctly, we can put solar on our units. And by the way, our units take up very little power. Roughly the bill is somewhere around $10 a month to operate the unit. But also, as a part of our process, we locate the sewer line and we tap into it. And we locate the source of water and we tap into it. We have our construction, we're lucky. We are actually a licensed general contractor. So we can do all this work ourselves. But that was a part of the process of getting these things approved for backyards in San Jose, is we are authorized and capable and skilled to do those connections that are required.
So are there any junior college parking lot programs kind of in the pipeline?
Yes, we have built one and another. We're working on another for West Valley Community College, and working on a pilot program with them. I spoke today with San Jose State University, because not just when you think about housing and universities, and this is something I know personally because this happened to me. What happens in the summer? These young folks who may have already been homeless return to homelessness because the system is not designed to house them permanently or through that longer period of time. Same thing happens at holidays. Dormitories close down, and students are left to figure out what to do next. But we're working with San Jose State, West Valley College. We understand actually outside of our program that I believe it is Foothill that is working to put some tiny homes on their parking lot now, because this is a viable, quick solution for emergency housing. I don't want to say people do it differently. For us, our housing program is really designed for dignity and designed for what everyone deserves in terms of housing. Some essential beauty, some essential comfort, and the things that they need to, and this is really key, when you're transitioning from an unhoused living to housing, you're leaving one set of skills for a new set of skills. You're leaving survival skills. And that's what it's like, right? It's to live unhoused is all about survival. And when you're adapting to life outside, you're losing your life skills and replacing them with survival skills. Part of what we're trying to do is return those skills of life skills, of cooking for yourself, of taking care of your hygiene and yourself in an environment that's conducive to that, to living inside in comfort without fear, so that you can begin to heal yourself mentally and emotionally. We hope that other vendors are doing the same type of thing. Ours is intentional because we've learned from our core members what's required. But we hope that they're all seeing the whole person and designing for the whole person.
So just, I see Amy's and then Debbie's hand, and I just want to say, so it sounds like there's a great deal of interaction between the core members and the program structure. So it's really a cooperative kind of program that you are doing.
Absolutely. Actually, that's key. One of the things that I've learned is that I don't know everything. So I can't expect that I have the recipe to help everyone. That's part of the problem with some of the first generations of housing that we built. We didn't ask the unhoused. So we built places they don't want to live. And, you know, everyone's entitled to their agency. We should try to build places that people want to live, so that they can come inside and, like I say, transition back to society.
So I want to ask Amy, and do you have a question, another question, and then to Debbie?
Yes, yeah, we were wondering about, do you connect people with Section 8 housing?
So the Section 8 program, very complicated, by the way. Yes, often we do. That doesn't mean they get housing.
No.
The waiting list is significantly long.
Yeah.
And it's because a lot of places will not accept Section 8 vouchers. Though they pay a reasonable rent. I mean, I think it's fair, but I think a lot of housing here is unfair. So, but unfortunately, a lot of places don't take them, so the waiting list is long, and then the wait to find housing can be even longer.
Thank you for the question, Amy. Debbie, you got a question?
Yeah, I think I heard you say correctly, Mr. Cantrell, that there's about 4,000 young people in San Jose. And the numbers that you talk about serving in your programs are less than 100. How do you make a choice on which ones get into your program or not? What's the process you go through?
So our process is generally just recruiting. So our process is that the only requirement to come to our program is that you are alive and want to. That's it. So we do it. It's not that easy, right? Because you know what's really interesting about young people who've gone through these types of things in their lives? They don't trust you. It's a hard story to believe. So we're going to take this young person who hasn't finished school yet, and give them an opportunity to get their actual diploma. And while they're doing that, we will train them in some job skills that are relevant to our green world. And we'll actually pay them 80% of average or mean income with benefits.
Yeah.
Kind of a hard thing to believe, right? When you've been pushed around so long in your life. And by the way, no skills required. And that's literally what we do. So our program grows and it depends. Currently, I think we service about 500 core members a year through our school and through our work programs, roughly. It's every day. Some leave, some come back, it kind of changes. But the rite of passage is that you want to do this. And if it turns out you're not ready and you need to leave, you're welcome back.
Wow. That's lovely. That's wonderful, wonderful. I wish you had more spaces so you could do more recruitment. Yeah,
I wish we did.
yeah. Well,
So
good work.
oh, I'm sorry, I see Rowan has her hand, and then Essie, I see you have your hand.
Actually,
Rowan?
can I mention one more thing before
Oh,
we
yeah.
go on to the next question? I forgot to mention. Unfortunately, and we do not consider this a good thing, we are actually running a wait list right now for the first time in the court. I think it's about 68 young people waiting to get into our programs. It is something we are not proud of. If we had more resources, we would solve that problem immediately. But unfortunately, that's where we are today.
Some years ago, there was a tiny home demonstration in City Hall Plaza by the city. And it was a lovely tiny home. It had a ramp. It was big enough that you could have gotten around in it in your wheelchair. And I'm a wheelchair user, so this is one of my concerns. And I see so many pictures of adult tiny homes where there's a wheelchair parked outside in the weather outside each and every tiny home. And I get so mind blown that that is an acceptable thing, you know, that
It is
and
unacceptable.
I understand as your population is different, you probably
Actually,
don't.
it's not.
You don't?
We have a person using a wheelchair in one of our tiny homes, and there is a ramp that we provided to make sure that he can safely, securely get inside and out. As a matter of fact, the next generation of our tiny homes are on bigger chassis without the wheel wells within that chassis, so that we can build ADA compliant tiny homes.
I couldn't believe that the city demoed an ADA tiny home. And that wasn't what they intended to actually do. I was just, disappointed.
Might have been, was that one? That could have been one of our tiny homes, I think.
I don't know. It was in
I won't hold
in
it to
City
you.
Hall Plaza some years ago, and it, sponsored by the city so that residents could see what a tiny home looked like.
Okay.
And I was just very happy as a person in a wheelchair that I could actually imagine living in this particular tiny home. But that isn't what they did.
No, it's unacceptable. That's shit. No, sorry, a passion. That's sadly, that's a sad case. Legally, it's not possible. That's not the way it's supposed to work. But anyway.
And so I see Essie, would you unmute Essie and for your question?
On what land can you park the homes? On any land, or how do you find places to park?
Okay, so one is the availability of colleges and universities now with a new law. We're working now with some of our colleges and universities in the area to do just that. Two, if you live within the city limits of San Jose, we had the law adapted so that you can put a tiny home in your backyard easily. It's rather than months of planning, it's a week of approval. Much better program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Chuck, so if you put a tiny home in someone's backyard in San Jose, it seems to me that is that isolating? Because part of being part of the core is about having the social support. So would you talk to that a little bit, please?
So actually, there are kind of two views on that, even within our core member population. Some like the cohort, some like the grouping, the community and the village that we have. Some don't. Actually, some would prefer to be in someone's backyard. What we really want to experiment with, and this is would be if there's some help from Bank of America, is with seniors whose mortgages may be in trouble, where having a tiny home in their backyard might afford them some rent that they could use to, help their existence, while at the same time providing a home for a core member. What we know, and this will come up in the next thing I want to show you, what we know is that multi-generational living can work extremely well. You have to be careful and deliberate, right? You can't just say, oh, just place any person in anyone's backyard. You have to make sure that there's some compatibility there. But with that compatibility, some magic can happen. As a matter of fact, how much time do we have left?
We have about 10, 15 minutes more.
Okay, can I show you something else that that I think is important to this conversation? Okay. So when someone asked earlier, well, why don't you build something bigger? That's what's next for us. We want to build something bigger. We want to build something bigger, something as beautiful and as life-sustaining as our tiny homes are for the larger community. This is a specific project that we're working on. It's early in the process, but I'm going to skip through some of this stuff because it's a lot of stuff, and I want to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Okay. So this project is taking an asset in the community that is in disuse and turning that into an asset in the community that is purpose-built for transition-age youth. And we're talking about making it multi-generational, because we understand that that's additive in everyone's life. So this is typically what happens with transitional housing in our area. You find an old motel, they buy it, and then they kind of do a paintbrush job on it, and they reopen it, and this is kind of what it looks like, which isn't terrible. It's certainly better than life on the street, that's for sure. But we want to reimagine that. This is that same motel, the way that we reimagine it. We want this to be a bright and beautiful place for young people to thrive as they transition into the next stage of their life. The idea is this is 2 to 4 years generally of transition. It's that period after high school through community college or trade school into college or university and to the doorstep of their new life. We want to create an environment where they together can live and support each other, but also be supported by us with the support services required and the activities required to help them transition their lives. Believe it or not, when you think about these types of projects, you think about generally the cost of a bed or doors in the housing industry is somewhere around $1 million now, which is disgusting. I'm sorry. It just $1 million for a door with potentially just one bed behind it. We actually can take, and by the way, remember I said earlier, it takes 5 to 7 years to get that built out. We can take an asset in a community that's distressed. We can use our core members in our job training program for construction to renovate it. We pay them 80% of mean wage. We provide their health insurance at the same time. We provide them the job training and skills that they need to move forward in their careers. And they build, not just for themselves, but for their community, a beautiful new asset in less than 2 years at the cost of somewhere, depending on lots of things, between $150,000 to $200,000. This is a model that we can put in multiple locations. This would also have our current lived experience knowledge from, we're working with 3 different youth-led organizations, YLM called the Youth Liberation Movement, Bill Wilson Center YIP program for their youth, internal youth initiatives, the county's youth system called the YAB, and other partners like the community colleges, the Bill Wilson Center, Raising the Bar, who have the populations that need this type of housing to create this for our community. This is our next step. This would house, I think the number is, because we would also have tiny homes on site as well. I think it's 80 folks in this community. So we're looking to scale up in our service.
So I see Amy's hand in just a minute, Amy, but I want to ask you, Chuck, what is your call to action to us? What is it? Because we tend to be, some of us were active, much more active in our previous years, but we're still, this is not a sit by and do nothing group of women. We have a long history of being activist women. So I just want to put out the invitation to you to call for action.
So, here's what's really important. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a planning commissioner, and I listen to all the housing programs that, or the development that's coming through our city. And my first job is to listen to the community, to hear your concerns or the things you're supporting, to know that this housing is not just right for your community, but supported by your community. And that is really important. That is really, really important. If there's something happening in your community and you have the opportunity to go to your city council and to give them your voice, please give them your voice. I hope that your voice is in favor of trying to house our community, but whatever your voice is, you're entitled to use it. And I implore you, please do that at a minimum. Do that. Also, volunteer. We are working to develop better volunteer programs for us. We have because our population is very specific, there are some thresholds for volunteers in our organization. We have to, because we work with young people, people have to get fingerprinted and background checked. That's just kind of the part of what we have to do. So we're working to try to facilitate that, to help make it easier for people to go through that process so that we can have more volunteers. Outside of that, your communities are all weighing these issues. And there are a number of things that are coming up as ballot issues that support housing, funding for housing like this and others. Get behind them. We just learned that every vote counts. Literally. Every single vote counts. Get behind those issues, and if you can't be there, vote. If you live in Chicago, vote early and vote often. But vote, use your voice, use those tools. And of course, every organization that I work with in this field always needs funding. That's given. But look, I'm not asking anybody to give anything that they are not comfortable giving. I would never do that. That's counter to our purpose. If you can't give money, you can give time. If you can't give time, you can give voice. If you can't give voice, vote. Those are that's what's important for all of us. And your hearts are clearly in the right place with your minds. What I heard you say, what I heard you sing, the words were exactly right. This is exactly it. You got it. You understand it clearly. The words are exactly right. And I always say, and tell my children this forever, still tell them this: get the right words in the right order, and you can change the world.
I wish it were that easy.
Really, really inspiring.
The San Jose Conservation Corps work with other towns in the county. I think you were just telling us about knowing other towns are looking at possibilities or proposals.
Yeah, so we're not just San Jose, and we're not just Santa Clara County here.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we work with, we do some work in San Mateo County. We do some work in Santa Cruz.
Great.
So the name is kind of a misnomer in every way possible. As a matter of fact, we're about to go through a process of potentially renaming ourselves because people are, they believe we're limited in our purview.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And so one of the positive things I've heard from you, Chuck, in a previous presentation was that you've had young people who are doing the training that you talked about in the restoration after fires and removing some invasive, and those young people have gone on to jobs. Do you want to will you close with that inspiring story?
Yes, this is, so we do this training because we believe that these skills are important to our ongoing life in our community. And we've been proven that this is, yes, true. And we have increased that number, by the way, significantly this year. A number of our core members go on to work within our city parks department and within our county parks department, and other areas with other communities that we've worked with. For example, a number of our core members went on to work with, I believe it's called Home First. When we ran shelter programs, they found their calling and they went directly to careers in that. We have one of our core members is actually, our former core members is a city council member for the city of San Jose. Actually, I was in his office today, once again, asking for a favor. But we are really trying to produce just amazing folks within our community. And by the way, our city parks department hired, I think the number is 32 of our core members so far this year. Which is up significantly, but the county still beats them by 38. So, and that work, and that's not all they do. They can go into anywhere they want to go. We're really working to develop our pathing, our journey for them so that they pick where they want to go next, and we try to enable that with them. So many are going on to San Jose State and other community colleges in our area, and others are going on to trade schools. One young woman actually is, I think she's doing her apprenticeship now with the electric workers union. She was one I worked with personally because her boyfriend told her she couldn't do it. I wanted to prove she couldn't. So.
All right, I would just please join me with a big Zoom applause, however you do it. Thank you so much. I'm so inspired once again. All right, that is the conclusion of the WILPF San Jose branch regular third Friday meeting with much appreciation to Chuck Cantrell. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your presentation to us tonight.
Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
opportunity. And thank you for the songs.
And your work. Woo.
Thank you.